So,
All right.
what is it about you and finales, man? It seems like every finale you kind of come out smelling like a rose. What's up with that?
Well, he needs some sort of something to balance off every horrible thing that's happened to him the rest of the season, right? I mean,
That is true.
It was funny, when the show ended last season, we didn't know that at that point that we were going to have a fourth season, and I was like, well, obviously it would be horrible if it ended, but I was like, well, at least I won, so if it ended, But no, we're so thrilled to be back. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the evolution of your character up to this point over the season?
Sure. Over the course of this season 4, or the series?
The series.
Sure. Well, as we know, he started off as Fish Mooney's umbrella boy, and then ended that season as the king of Gotham, and then of course when things happened too fast, he didn't know exactly how to hold on to his throne, and then it was all lost. And then, of course, then making a play to do it legit and try and be a mayor, and that failing as well, obviously complicated by his misguided feelings for the Riddler. And then now here we are, where at the end of season 3, he learned the lesson that everyone is learning in Gotham, and that to love someone is to be vulnerable. You see that in Jim Gordon's story. Obviously, you see it in Oswald's. You see it in every single character's story in our show. It's one of the main themes of our show. And so, knowing that, having, gone through what he went through with Enigma, starting season 3, he's decided to shut down any sort of compassionate feeling that he has. I mean, it's basically been, ripped out of him, up until this point. And so he starts off, I would say the most powerful he has been yet in our series. Even more powerful than he was as mayor, as, the king of the Gotham underworld, and also, running running the show out of the Iceberg Lounge. He is now where he has always wanted to be. And as we start off the season, he's extremely strong. And a lot of that is, again, because he's shut off any sort of capacity to love or to care or to put anyone above himself, So, yeah.
Based on that change in your power at the beginning of season 4, is there any dynamic with another character that's most changed or surprising to you?
Yeah, well, I don't know about most changed, but, it's, as you've seen through the 3 seasons, it's all about people gaining status and then losing it. And then, the balance of power among everybody in our show is constantly shifting. But the beginning of the season is the dynamic between Jim Gordon and Penguin. There have been times when they have been uncomfortable allies, and then obviously times when they've been enemies. And this is probably the most diametrically opposed they have ever been in the show. And, I'm excited to explore that, because again, anything between Penguin is defined by Jim Gordon, and Jim Gordon, a little bit of him is also defined by the Penguin, and so yeah.
I like that.
About that. Yeah.
When it gives you a storyline Penguin's going to fall in love with A. I mean, just not that there's anything wrong with that, but just from a comic standpoint, are you okay? Or how does that go down?
It's always shocking, but at the same time, as it is with any writer that comes into a comic book, they are given license to adapt and to shift certain fundamentals that people think are so, intrinsic to the story. They are allowed to shift and to also have the show reflect the times in which it is being shown and the times in which it has been written. And so with our show, we are doing nothing. We are doing exactly the same thing. People get hung up on, specifics and how, certain things can be shocking. But really, the stories have changed so much. If you go back through the years, you would be shocked to learn some of the shit the Penguin was doing back in the 80s. Believe me, I did some research. He was learning karate. Yeah. And he became a judo master, black. You know what I mean? Who would have thought that was a thing? So at the same time, yes, it's always it's unexpected. But in terms of being worried that, how is this going to fit into the Batman universe? I think we've absolved ourselves of that sort of pressure because, again, we're doing nothing different than what any comic book writer has done whenever they've stepped into the Batman world, and including the filmmakers as well, Chris Nolan and Tim Burton, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
We have Ra's al Ghul finally on the show, and given that it's pretty much the biggest power play in Gotham City. Will we see them interact? Will they clash?
Oh, I think most definitely. I mean, John Stevens our executive producer, talked about how, this season, there are, again, as with every season, alliances are made, but you're going to see distinct groups of the characters in the show all vying for their own particular areas of power. And the thing about I learned it's Ra's al Ghul, so I'm not trying to correct you. I'm just saying it the way I was.
True. True.
Everybody does that.
I know, of course. But in terms of him, the fact that he is supernatural, there's something like, otherworldly about him. He, in a way, is the most powerful one of all of us, and we are all going to have to contend with him. And I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.